Welcome everybody to Lit Up. This is the premiere of my Instagram show called Lit Up. The purpose of this show is to bring to you fun, casual interviews with spiritual teachers with the aim of tuning you in and lighting you up. And I'm so excited to be kicking this off with my dear friend Vix Maxwell from New Age Hipster. Now, a little housekeeping before we start. Next episode will happen next Wednesday with another friend of mine who is also here right now, Katie Brookhurst, the social media angel, who's going to talk to us about how to use social media in a more authentic, in a more balanced, in a more spiritual way. So be sure to schedule this in your calendar right now. It's going to be next Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time, but to ensure you're getting all the notifications for the lives, for the live interviews for Lit Up, be sure to be turning on the notifications for posts and stories on my Instagram. And the way you do that is when you go to my profile, you click on the three dots on the top right corner and then turn on post notifications and story notifications. Alright, there won't be any consistency, any specific consistency with regards to when I'll be doing those interviews. I'm just gonna go with what feels right at the time. But from now on, I'm excited to be welcoming in the lovely Vix. Let me just bring her on. There we go. So exciting. And if you have any questions for Vix, be sure to post them in the comments. Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you? This is so fun.
It is so exciting. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Me too.
We've known each other for quite a while. But this is the first time we're actually doing something online, which is so exciting. I don't think I remember the first time we met. I think we knew each other online for quite some time, maybe a few years. And then we met at events, and then we started hanging out more. So exciting. So before we start, actually, for our first question, I just wanted to touch base on your spiritual path. Like me, you believe in fusion spirituality in the sense that each one of us is supposed to find their own personal path to connecting to source, to finding a way to connect with spirit. So I wanted to hear from you about your own personal path of how did you end up becoming the New Age Hipster? What was your journey to being where you are right now?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Like for most of us, right? I never expected to be here, like doing this work, like spiritual work, being a professional tarot reader. All of that stuff was like so never something that I never planned this. It all just, I always tell people like, oh, it just kind of happened, you know, but obviously it's a lot, there's a lot of work involved, but it's like following your guidance and just kind of following the path and then ending up in the place where you kind of feel like you're supposed to be, right? But it's been really interesting. Like when I was a teenager, I was really into witchcraft, Wicca, all that kind of stuff was really popular in the 90s. Like everybody was joining a coven, and that was really cool, really, really fun. And then kind of later, like when I was about 19, I actually started going to church. So we had a little bit of experience, I say working in the church because I was in like the worship team and I was like singing in the band and everything. So I was like really into it. And yeah, and then I kind of left the church for a while, and then I kind of went on this path that was just like reading some books and just kind of doing my own thing and like exploring what I felt God was and what having a connection with the universe really felt like for me. And then I just kind of, around the time of my Saturn return, I kind of got really into spirituality again. I started buying decks, angel cards, like everything just kind of started to be like, hey, like do this, pay attention to this. And then somehow I ended up here with you on this call.
Just in a snapshot. I'm just curious to know, because you wrote an article that I really enjoyed called Why It's Okay to Be a Christian Witch, something like that, something about being a Christian witch. which, as we've had this chat before, it's a very popular article because it triggered a lot of people, both in a good way as well as in a bad way. And that's always very interesting to me because the two terms, I've been someone who's been a Christian myself, and I've been like hardcore Christian, and then I got into Wicca and we sort of have a similar path in the sense that I try to combine the two as well. And I actually had a book, I may have it here, called Christian Wicca. Anyway, but my question is, these two paths seem to be very contrasting, and for many people, like it triggers them in a negative way. What is your opinion regarding combining different paths and combining seemingly different and opposite paths? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Why is it okay?
Yeah, that blog post is still my best blog post. Like every week it gets more hits than anything else that I've ever written or ever done, which is really interesting to me. And the majority of people have commented on the post or sent me emails. I get emails like pretty much every week from people who say, "Thank you for writing that. I thought I was the only one. Like, I didn't know that other people were out there who were like, I didn't even know that was okay. I didn't even know that was something you can do." You know, like I get these emails from people who are like living in the Bible Belt and they're into witchy practices, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, like I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know this could be okay." And then, you know, the same, like I get emails from people who are really in the witchy kind of communities who kind of feel like they can't ever talk about Jesus or their like the way that they pray or whatever because they feel like that's not okay either. And it's just like people are like, "Oh, thank God, like thank God I'm not the only one." So it's really exciting like to have these conversations with people who are like, "Yeah, me too." And I think there's a lot more of us out there than we realize because so many people aren't sharing that. Like there's probably loads of people in the witchy communities who do like Jesus, but they just don't say that. And the same as like, you know, all those people who are going to church who have a tarot deck like in their top drawer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a lot more present than we realize. But yeah, it's really interesting because in so many ways it's like, you know, the pagan path, the witchcraft path, and Christianity, like they do kind of say like the other one is bad, right?
That is my main issue basically, because the conversations that I've had with Christians, because I've had my own path with Christianity as well, is I see Christianity personally as a perfectly perfect plan to go to God, to lead to God, to go to love. If we accept that God is love and that there are several maps to love, I see Christianity as a perfect path to that love. But what triggers me with certain paths of Christianity sometimes is when I have this acceptance towards them, but when I tell them, well, I have my different path to love, they just don't accept it. Like, that's just the devil pretending to be love. And I'm like, you cannot say that. So what I'm really feeling is that Jesus talked about love. Christianity, the spirituality of the Christian path is about love. But sometimes the way it's been interpreted, the way it's been manipulated by the church system is creating all this confusion, all this set standards and rigidity that's creating all this spiritual warfare within people basically and between people. I'm curious, what's your opinion and your view on these different paths to love? Is the path to God just one, or is it different for every single person? And if it's different and there are different combinations, is there a limit to the combinations?
Yeah, I love what you say about like there's so many different paths to love. And like I resonate with that so much because I feel like there are people in so many different communities, different religions, different like spiritual belief systems who are actually all on the same page, you know? Like I have Christian friends who are like not into spiritual stuff at all, who are more on the same page as me than some other people in the spiritual community. I have friends who are atheists who are just like never gonna pick up a book on like how to be spiritual. Like that's never gonna happen. That's not their path. And yet they have found some way in their life, like some way of living that is a path to love. And I think like the best thing that we can do is to be just respectful and cool about everybody else's path, and to only kind of, you know, be worried about someone if it feels like they're not on the path to love, right? Which happens in all communities. Like we see it all the time in spiritual communities. There's always like arguments and drama and like all this stuff going on. Like I've been
talking about it.
Yeah, like there's been so many times when I've had people like completely slam me and the way that I work, or just like, what are you doing, Vix? Like, you're doing everything wrong. Like, can't believe that you're calling yourself a tarot reader. Like, I've had all of that stuff happen to me from fellow tarot readers and people who are also in the community. And I was really shocked and surprised when that happened, because I thought when I started hanging out in these communities, I was like, oh, I found my people. You know, like, this is it. This is my people. Like, the spiritual people are my people. And then when I got into these groups and I was having, like, a part of these exchanges or seeing them happen with other people, and it's like, these aren't my people. Like, what is happening here? So yeah, I relate so much with what you said about it. It's a path to love. And some people are in religions, spiritual path, and it's like they're doing something different, and I guess, you know, everyone's on their own journey, so that's okay. But I tend to steer clear of anybody who's not on a path to love, no matter what that looks like for them. Because I think there's like so many different ways, right, for people to find that path.
Exactly, and you touched on the topic of community, which I feel is very important, especially with those watching us right now. And by the way, everyone who's watching, welcome. If you have any questions for Vix, feel free to, and I'll get to you. But I want to touch on the topic of, because I feel that like, for example, what we're doing right now, we're bringing in people together. 25 people are watching live right now, and more will watch the replay. All people are just coming in wanting to discover their own tribe, wanting to discover a community like you were talking about, where they will feel accepted, where they will feel supported. And I feel it's very important to have that community, and I know you do as well, because you have your own Facebook group, Spiritual Journey Pit Stop. Could you tell us a little bit about why you created that group? I know the basis for it is acceptance, and it's accepting all different religions. So talk to us more about that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I created it, because I started hanging out in these groups online, and I just never felt like, I didn't feel like I could speak my truth in those places. Like, I always felt like I was censoring myself. So I was in like a couple of groups. I was in like a tarot group where I got slammed for like saying things like, oh, you know, well, I just turn the card over and whatever comes into my head is like what I tell my clients. And people were like, what? Like, I can't believe that you do that. It's like, whoa, okay, what? Let alone talking about like Jesus and Christianity and whatever. So yeah, basically I wanted to create a place where I felt safe to talk about everything that I'm into, you know, unicorns, Jesus, tarot, like shadow work, light work, a place where anybody can come in and talk about anything. Like, there are people in my group who are like Christians who actually like call it, like, their label. They're like, I'm a Christian, I'm into some woo-woo stuff, but I'm a Christian. And then there's other people in there who are like, you know, starseeds and all sorts of other stuff. So that's why I made it. And I wanted it.
Your group is very accepting. You include everybody. There are Christians and there are people from a different kind of faiths. Do you find it works, and there is the respect that we're talking about, or is there still any arguments going on, or not? Or are the people coming in all just on the same path as we are, in the sense that there are many different paths to love? This is my path to love, this is your path to love, and I accept it, and it's correct.
I think most people are doing that. And I think a lot of people who sometimes aren't doing that really want to do that, but they're kind of like still trying to navigate, like, well, you know, a lot of people who dislike Christianity dislike it because they've been through something really painful and really difficult and really challenging. So it's not that easy to just say to everybody, like, Christians are cool, like, you know, just be nice to the Christians. So I can understand, like, when stuff comes up with people and they're like, they get triggered by something, or they're struggling with, like, you know, now I have to hang out with Christians, like, they're the people that, you know, did this and this and this to me. So
patriarchy and all that.
Like I try to really like hold space for that kind of you know, that discussion. But there are people in the group who've had to leave. You know, there's people who've been so triggered by having to be nice to a Christian, just like, I can't do this, I'm out. And it's like, well, if that's where you're at, you know, that's okay. But
what do you think is what triggers people with regards to Christianity?
I think it's the, I think, you know what, I think it's a lot of things. I think it's the rules and the regulations and the fact that Christianity has never really been that inclusive for a whole bunch of different people. But I also think there's just like a collective kind of pain and suffering that we're all carrying from everything that's happened for the last 2,000 years.
Yes, that's what I'm feeling as well. All the patriarchal structure that has been going on for so long, and what the Christian church, let's separate the religion from the actual institution, what they've done to eliminate paganism and to enforce themselves on the planet. I think that's what people are drawing from collectively and subconsciously from their past lives, creating all this fear against it. So how have you been able to move past that, to move away from that, and really embrace it into your spiritual path? Because I'm sure many people watching right now have been brought up Christians, or have this liking to Christianity, and they want to connect with Jesus, for example, but they don't know how to bring it all together. How have you been able to move past all that collective trauma that we tend to have?
Well, first of all, I don't know that I have moved past all of it. I feel like, you know, I'm moving through it all as well, like with everybody else. But for me, like, my relationship that I have with Jesus as my teacher is nothing to do with the church. Like, it is about me and him, and it's about his teachings, but it's not about the church. You know, like, it's about what he was trying to do when he was here, where he was trying to get people to be friends with each other and to love each other and to help each other and just be cool. And for me, that's like, well, that's what, you know, that's how I want to live my life. I just want to be compassionate and be kind as much as I can and live in that kind of energy. So I feel like I had to take Jesus out of the church and like bring him home with me and like hang out, like we hang out in the backyard, we hang out like walking around the woods. Like I don't go to church to find him anymore. But I do, but in a lot of ways as well, I really miss the church because I miss the structure in some ways, and I really miss the community. So a lot of things I don't miss, but there are some things that I do wish that I had a little bit more of in my path now.
Which would be, I guess, because I'm going into the divine masculine and divine feminine topic, which is something we've had a conversation before. So this structure comes with the divine masculine. It is following certain rules, following certain expectations, and just going through a pattern, as well as the honoring the male aspect of God and the masculine aspect of God, as opposed to the divine feminine, which is more about retreating, nurturing, and honoring the feminine qualities of the goddess. Now, there is a lot of talk for the past few years around the divine feminine. And personally, I fully support that, and I've found that in my own personal spiritual path. I've sacrificed the divine feminine for the divine masculine many times in my life, and I've gotten the clear message to spend more time connecting to the divine feminine. However, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but the way I see things, the attention that the divine feminine has been getting for the past few years is great. But sometimes if we don't have the end goal in mind, which is balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, we forget the end goal, and we may end up going to the other direction, where we create a matriarchal world where the divine feminine is superior than the divine masculine, and we create yet another imbalance, bringing new distractions in spirituality and in the world. What's your take on this? How do you find the balance between the two?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff because I think that, like you, like I think it's amazing, it's incredible, like that the divine feminine is rising and everybody's like on board with she energy and the goddess, and we're like, yeah, bring back the goddess. But I do feel like in the process of getting like so fired up about the feminine, that a lot of us have kind of, it's not like we've forgotten the masculine, but it's almost like, again, it's like this thing that's ingrained into us, especially women. We've been really like, we've been told a lot lately, like how bad the patriarchy is and how bad men are and how much men are to blame for this and this and this. And while that can partly be true when we look back at history, I don't think that that's necessarily helpful in terms of moving forward. Like, looking at history is great and we can go, okay, let's not do that again. Like, let's look back and learn from our mistakes. But I see a lot of stuff online, you know, about like, just the patriarchy and that men are like to blame for everything and that men burnt the witches and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, this isn't what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be finding a way to balance those energies. And I know so many men who are in the community, but not even spiritual men as well, like men who are just doing their thing, who are like, their divine masculine is rising as well. And they're connecting with the feminine and the masculine energies. So there's like this massive shift happening for all these men out there who are starting to like be like, yeah, that wasn't cool. Like, you know, what men have done in the past. Like, that's not me. That's not where I want to go. But it kind of just feels like we're not really holding this space for the men who are trying to like make their way through all of this stuff. That's just from what I've seen and from my personal perspective, though. I know everybody is having a completely different experience with this stuff. But I've always been very drawn to the divine masculine, like working with Jesus, working with Archangel Michael. Like, I freaking love those guys. And I love working with Mother Mary and goddess energy too. But I personally, in my practice, I'm never going to be like, okay, now it's all about Jesus and I'm going to ignore my, like, the female deities, or I'm never going to be like, it's all about the goddess and I'm not going to, like, talk to the masculine.
Yeah, something similar has been coming up for me in the sense that people vilify the divine masculine patriarchy, but we forget that the divine masculine is not the bad guy. The way we've abused the divine masculine by creating a patriarchal world, that's the bad guy. And I feel it's our job as spiritual people, as light workers, to take that tool, to take that energy, the divine masculine, and use it in a different way, because that's how we rise it. And I guess that's what you are seeing as well. But I'm curious to know, how do you practically honor the divine masculine? Because my guess is many people here and everyone watching, let us know in the comments. Do you know what the divine masculine is? I mean, because everybody's talking about the divine feminine and they have beautiful words to describe the divine feminine, all the different goddesses, but what is the divine masculine? In your opinion, the divine masculine, how does it manifest in spirituality?
I think, like, in spiritual truth, like, but I think in spiritual truth, like, there really is no masculine or feminine. There's just source. And source is like manifesting in these different ways to help us to be able to connect to it, right? Like, this is how I see like everything that I do. It's just God.
So I want to touch on divination. Let's go lighter. Okay. So divination tools. Well, lighter. As light as I can go. Divination has used to a great degree for fortune telling. What I don't like to see is people just giving disempowering readings to people and negative predictions about their future. I know that you don't do that, and you're using divination as a self-empowerment tool. Can you rumble a little bit about that? Because I think the world hear it a little bit more.
Yeah, I can. I'd love to I could ramble about that for years. I feel so passionately about like not doing predictive readings for myself. There's other people out there who are doing predictive readings in a way that is like really empowering and is really cool and it helps people. And if that, you know, if that's working for you and it's helpful, then, you know, keep doing what you're doing. But I personally don't like to tell somebody what's going to happen for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that I don't want them to come back to me in 6 months and be like, well, that didn't happen. Oh, that didn't happen. I want my money back, which I've seen people do to other, you know, other readers out there. But also, I feel like when somebody comes to a reading and they ask you what's going to happen with my relationship or what's going to happen with my job, and then you say, well, you're going to get a new job. That person is then going to start taking action towards getting a new job. So when I do predictive readings, I feel like I'm not really doing a predictive reading. I'm like just helping that person to like manifest something, right? Which could be really good if the cards are good and it's saying like, oh, this cool thing's going to happen. And they'll then have that belief with them that that thing's going to happen and start to take action towards making that happen. But then if you say to them, well, your relationship looks like it's going to break up, you know, your partner's cheating on you, or, you know, like this is going on at work, like you should leave your job. And they're like, but I love my job. No, you should leave. Like you're going to leave your job. Like that can do all sorts of crazy things to people and their own energy and the way that they're moving through the world, manifesting and creating what's going to happen. So I have this story for myself, like when I kind of first started doing readings, I wasn't really doing like proper readings. I was like playing with the tarot really. And I actually had a friend who was also like learning tarot, and she did a reading for me around this boy that I really liked. And she said, yep, you're definitely going to get together within 2 weeks. So I was like, yes, this is awesome. And I did everything within my power to make that happen, right? Started texting him all the time. I was like basically chasing this guy for 2 weeks because I believed that it was going to happen. And then we did hook up and it was terrible. It was like not what like, I do not want to be with this person. Like, this is not what I thought this was going to be like. But that was a really powerful lesson because it made me realize, like, how much power there is in the predictive reading. Like, how much power that you have as a reader over your clients, especially people who are in a place where they can't really see for themselves. They can't make that decision for themselves, right? Like I could do a reading for you and say like, oh, well, this is the outcome. And you can be like, well, I don't think I want that. So I'm going to go in a different direction. But there are other people, like more vulnerable people who are just kind of starting out on their spiritual path, or people who are really lost and confused, who are going to a predictive reader and they're going to see like, well, your relationship's a mess, like that's going to break up. And it's going to like change their whole course of their life potentially. And like, that's just not something that I want. Like, I don't want that kind of karma. So what I do when people come to me and they're like, well, I have these two choices. Can you help me work out which one's best for me? I say, yep. And we pull cards, but we don't just pull cards. We talk about like, what's going on? Like, how do you feel about this? And I ask them questions about, you know, well, what do you really feel when you visualize yourself like going in that direction? How does that feel for you? What are your fears around that? And then we can kind of like look at it from not just the cards, but from a really like spiritual but grounded, connected kind of compassionate and loving kind of place, instead of like, you know, turn the card over and be like, this is going to happen to you. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I love it. And I have a follow-up question on this one. Do you believe that divination tools and tarot can predict the future, or do they predict a probable future?
I always say to people, like the way that I read is you kind of like, you do need to well, you don't need to, but I like to look at like the next steps, you know, like where we're going moving forward, where we're potentially going moving forward. Like if you stay on this path, this is what is likely to happen. But a lot of the time you can work that out just from like, you know, well, if you leave your job and you never leave your job, what is likely to happen is that you will not become happier. Like you don't always need to be pulling cards to kind of work out, well, what's the most likely outcome, you know, to kind of, yeah, from where you're at.
Perfect. Now, another question I have for you is with regards to money and spirituality, because I know you recently did a money love, and it's a topic that triggers people. Like after religion, it is money. Okay, and especially within this religion, I see personally, within my own audience, within my own clients, a resistance to, first of all, accepting the idea of spending money, and second, investing in ourselves, and therefore investing in courses or classes, or just, and there is this negativity around money and around online courses with regards to spirituality specifically. There is this idea that spiritual wisdom should be given freely. So what is your take on that?
Yeah,
another big topic.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do if I didn't get paid for it. Like I couldn't help all of the people that I'm helping if I didn't get paid for it. And that just like one-on-one sessions. It's like being here with you and having this conversation, or like doing free readings on Instagram every Monday. Like that stuff takes time and energy. And if I'm not getting some money from somewhere for like my life so I can pay my bills and feel like, you know, I'm not going to drown and like be homeless, if I'm not receiving money from somewhere, I can't do any of that. And there is like this weird thing out there where people are like, you know, oh, well, you have a spiritual gift, which, you know, is another thing we could talk about. You should be giving it away for free.
Oh, the gift.
Like what? Like, but it's first of all, I don't feel like it's a gift. I feel like it's a skill that I have developed because I've worked really hard. Like I have read 1 million books. I meditate every day. I pull cards for myself every day. I've done like thousands of readings for other people. Like this isn't something that I just like woke up and just had it and then I could like go out and save the world with it. It's not like that. Like when people are paying for a session with me, they're not just paying for that hour, they're paying for like the hour that I did on my meditation pillow that morning. They're paying for like, you know, all the tears and the like all of me working through my own stuff so that I can be there for them and hold that space for them. And I think sometimes when we're like trying to decide, you know, like, oh, how much is my service really worth? We forget that we're, you know, oh, but you know, this person only charges that much an hour. And it's like, but you're not just charging for an hour. You're charging for like everything that you do that helps you to be there for an hour with that person and hold the space for them in the best possible way.
The entire path.
Yeah. Because it's hard work to do this. Like, I don't know, maybe there are some people out there that are like just gifted and they don't have to do anything, you know, they wake up in the morning and they're just like, your guide says this and your guide says that and like, you know, whatever. But I have to work, like I have to ground myself, clear myself, protect myself like every day to be able to do this. Like it's not just this special gift that you should be giving away for free. I feel very strongly about this.
Yeah, same thing here, because my personal belief regarding the gift is we're all born intuitive, period. We're all born psychic, period. But each one is born of us with a certain degree of someone may have naturally a psychic skill more developed than somebody else. But we are all able to develop our psychic skills and be our own spiritual teachers and be our own intuitives. And I've been someone who wasn't gifted in the sense of I was seeing angels as a kid. I worked hard as well to develop that skill. And sometimes there is this empowerment that people have, where they idolize spiritual teachers, seeing them as these gifted people. But no, we all have those skills. You want to talk a little bit about that, and whether everyone is gifted in the sense that we're all intuitive, and what we can do simply to start developing us if we're not in touch with them.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on this. The idea that everybody that comes into this world has, like, this is our natural state, right? Like, it's our natural state to be grounded, clear, like, be able to hear our spirit guides, be able to, like, communicate with our past over loved ones. Like, that is our natural state. And we've just lost it because we've been, you know, there's all this other stuff going on in this world. And we've lost it, and we've forgotten that that is actually the natural state. So for me, like, all this work that I've done, it's not necessarily, it hasn't really been about focusing on connection, like focusing on, well, I'm doing this work because I want to talk to my guides and angels. It's really like me doing the work because I want to feel aligned, and I want to feel like I'm like feeling how I'm supposed to feel. It's about removing the stuff that isn't me, that isn't mine, so that I can do this work for others. And I just wanted to mention as well that, like, I know we're kind of saying, like, you know, oh, there's these people out there who are like gifted and they can hear everything and see angels and stuff. People I know who are like that, who had these amazing experiences when they're kids, you know, grandma's in the room, like angels are in the room, whatever. Those people are still doing the work as well. Like, even if you do have like a kind of a natural talent for something, you're still doing the work. Like, I feel like I have a natural talent for tarot, but it's not like I pick up the deck once and I can do amazing readings for everybody. Yeah, journey, really. It's lifelong learning with the tarot. It's just that kind of feels like my thing.
And what are some ways, Vix, that you use at the start of? What are some ways that you use at the start of your tarot journey to start developing your intuitive skills as a tarot reader specifically? Because I know many people love the tarot. It's one of the most popular.
So energy work was like everything for me. Like, when I started to protect my energy, everything shifted. Like, I was protecting my energy because I was dealing with really negative, difficult people at work. And I was just feeling really exhausted all the time. Like, I was starting to realize, like, there's other things affecting my energy. What can I do about this? And so I started protecting my energy. And then once I started to do that at work, I became a clearer channel for my guides and angels and all this other stuff to start coming in. And that was like weirdly, well, not weirdly, I mean, it makes sense. That was the same time that I started to be able to really read tarot as well. So it was like this combination of protecting my energy so that I could be clearer. And then, you know, one thing that I always say to people with working with the tarot is, like, tarot books are great. Like, studying the tarot is amazing, but put the books away and just look at the images and see how they make you feel, and see what comes up for you. Like, get a journal, get a notebook, turn over the cards and write down, like, what's the first thing that you think of? How does this make you feel? Like, does it make you feel like life is great and everything's fine? Does it make you feel like there's something bad about to, like, write all that stuff down, and create your own kind of way of reading the cards.
I love that. I love that, because there are so many books out there about tarot, and it can get very confusing. It can get especially confusing. I want your opinion on this topic, because I have so many decks here. And for example, some decks, they have new cards, or they have different names for the suits. Like, for example, the Angel Tarot cards, they have different names for the suits. We have the fairies, again, different names. We have the Good Tarot, which has new cards. We have the Akashic Tarot with less cards. So it can get very confusing with all these different new types of tarot, changing the names, changing the symbols, removing cards, adding cards. What is your take on this? Is it right? Is it wrong? And why?
Such a great question. I think for me, it depends on the deck. Like I tend to I'll either connect with the deck or I won't, regardless of how many cards, what the suits are, what's going on with it, of the cards. But I think it's cool, and I think it's really exciting that people are doing different things with tarot. Because for a long time we've had like the Rider-Waite-Smith, and there's been the Thoth, and there's been like the Marseille and a few other kind of versions, but it's all been pretty much Rider-Waite-Smith clones. And I think it's really exciting that people are changing it, because I think we live in a different time now. We're working with different energies now. Like back in the 1920s, the world was a different place. There was different energies here, and people who were doing spiritual work were working with a different kind of energy. And now we're kind of like, I feel like anyway, like we're waking up so much at the moment. Like we need like the Star Child Tarot, and we need all of these new exciting tools that are created by people who are living here and now, and who are working with that energy that we're working with while they're creating the deck. Like feels really exciting to me. But having said that, I still do love my Rider-Waite-Smith as well. I'm always going to use that deck. But and weirdly, like I tend to use that more for clients, and I tend to use like the kind of newer decks for myself. But then I think it depends on like, what questions people are asking and where they're at in their journey, and what kind of energy I feel like I need to be working with them. But I think it's exciting. I think it's really cool and exciting.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, because as you said, the tarot were created so many years ago when the world was in a different state. So in a way, it's so good that we're expanding the trend, and we're expanding the craft of the tarot by listening to how things are changing and observing how things are changing in the world, and then creating something that adjusts and mirrors that in some way. That's something that I see quite a lot with neo-paganism in general, and new religions in general, like New Ageism is a new form of religion where we're moving things forward in some way, which I think is always quite good. Now I'm bringing the topic back onto the into the religion and spirituality thing. Let's see if the angels interfere again. But I want to go to the question of, really briefly, the difference between religion and spirituality. You posted something about it on Instagram a while back. You said that religion is rigid, spirituality is fluid. Could you talk to me more about the differences between the two, and how can someone know which one is the right for them?
I think it's like, it's different for everyone. Like I said, like there are things that I really miss about church and being a part of a religion. There is part of the structure that I miss. Like trying to do this new age thing on your own can be really kind of overwhelming and daunting, because you sit down at your altar in the morning and you're like, what am I going to do today? Like, am I going to pull cards? Am I going to meditate? Am I going to do some yoga? Am I going to go into the Akashic Records? Am I going to like go to the Sirius star system? Like, what should I do today? And it can feel a bit like, really like there's so many options and there's so many different things I could be doing in this moment. Whereas when you have a religion, when you have like a structured religion, you kind of just guided, you're like, okay, well, I sit down and I read my Bible and then I pray, and that's, that's my thing. That's what I do. And so I think that for some people, like the religion really is the right path for them. I think that's great. If you're in a religion and you're like, this is what I need, this works for me, this covers like everything that I want out of my spiritual path, then that's great. But I think a lot of people who are in religions are like, they like their religion, but they're also like, oh, but I really want to but I want to go in the Akashic Records, like, oh, I want to like do this meditation or like get an oracle deck. Like people are really curious and they want to do that stuff. And I think when you're in a religion, you kind of feel like you can't do that. But at the same time, I feel like religion's changing, or it needs to change in order to keep people. It needs to be like, you want to get an oracle deck, that's okay. You can still come to church. Because I've been wanting to go to church for a little while now, and just to kind of have a community. And I love singing at church. Like I love, I used to go to like Assembly of God churches where everyone's like, yeah, we're all singing and like it's, speaking in tongues and everything is like crazy awesome. But I feel like if I go there and somebody says to me, so what do you do for a job? And I have to say, well, I'm a tarot reader, like I'm so quickly, right?
How would that go?
Yeah, but then it's like, well, they're losing somebody. Like they're losing somebody who actually is in alignment with with not all of their beliefs, but quite a lot of their beliefs. They're just like closing the door on so many people. And I feel like maybe this is just a dream of mine, but I feel like religion is going to change. Like as we're moving forward, the doors are going to be open to more people. It's going to be more open-minded. Like it has to be.
It has to be. And I was chatting to a friend of mine the other day who's a lawyer, she's very analytical, and she was like, if I had written the Bible, I would have dated every single year because that book is really old. There is a stage that takes us from being a beginner in a spiritual path and developing our intuitive skills to starting to becoming a little bit more advanced. What is that commitment or that step that we need to take to break to the next level, to become pros as spiritual teachers ourselves?
I think it's like the difference between being a bit of a spiritual dabbler and doing it every day. So whatever it is for you, right? Because for some people, for me, it's like a big song and dance and I got to do like tarot readings and meditate and got to do all this stuff. For other people, it's like just 5 minutes of getting quiet and like connecting with your own heart and being like, okay, what do I need to do today? It's like that connection, like to whatever it is that you're connecting to, making sure that you're doing that every single day. Because I feel like when you show up in that way and you're like, I'm here, even on those days where there's no, like, it feels like there's no one there, like your spirit guides are like very quiet and there's nothing happening and there's no amazing visuals in your meditation, you come back again the next day and you show up again the next day. And the more you do that, the more all of those amazing things start to happen. So yeah, for me, it's like showing up every day for whatever.
You show up and then...
Yeah, for whatever it is.
The spirit shows up for you as well, in other words.
Yes.
When you show up for you. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for this interview, Vix. I'd like you to tell us, to tell the people watching right now or watching the replay, where they can find you, what are some future projects that you're working on, and where to hang out with you.
My website is newagehipster.co, but if you go onto Google and you just type in New Age Hipster, you'll find me really easily. I'm New Age Hipster 33 on here on Instagram. But yeah, I think like from my website you can find my my Facebook group, my other social media accounts, my YouTube channel. Like if you go to the website, you'll find like all the other links to everything. And there's like a couple of freebies on there. There's a free energy protection ebook because I'm like so passionate about that. And there's also a free ebook with some of my favorite tarot spreads as well.